Hi guys, I have been thinking recently about the harbour scene on my layout. It's right in the middle of the room on the peninsula and visible from three sides, so I want to make a good job of it. Anyway, let me turn the camera around and show you more of what I've been thinking about. Well, here's the scope of my waterfront scene. I have one rather large warehouse and a substantial wharf area. The mock-up for the warehouse as it stands is around 27 inches by 9 on 4 floors, and I'm thinking that when I eventually build the proper one it will probably be about that size. Now, some of the features I want to include are roof access doors so that my harbour crane can gain direct access into the top floor, and also freight doors on all the other floors as was common on waterfront warehouses. Also, there is a substantial outside area that will need to be full of freight, and I've also planned to build a timber jetty out here which will also need some freight on it. And lastly, there's going to be a cargo ship in the harbour, and I plan to have the hold open in the process of being loaded or unloaded, so I'm going to need stacks of crates inside the ship too. So altogether I'm probably going to need a couple of thousand crates if I'm going to mirror what I see in prototype photographs of steam air freight transshipment areas, because the first thing that jumps out at me in every one of those photographs is the vast sea of crates of every conceivable shape and size. There's a few manufacturers that sell miniature crates for model railroads. These are from Tichy. For about $6 I got enough parts to build 8 crates. Well, I actually made 9 because I cut one of them in half. These are, I think, from Prizer, but I'm not sure. I don't like them as much, and they were way more expensive anyway. But if I use these as an example, the total volume of the whole set in HO scale is approximately 360 cubic feet. That's approximately 1/10 of the volume of a typical 40-foot boxcar. So even a small freight house is going to need many packs of crates to look right. And if we look at the size of my warehouse here, that would require a second mortgage to buy them. Also, these crates here represent plywood crates, and plywood was in its infancy in the period that I'm modelling. What I really need is crates made out of solid planks of wood. There is another way of doing it. This crate here I built board by board from basswood, and although it was a lot of fun to do one that way, it certainly wouldn't be any fun to do a large number. So what I need is a way of producing large numbers of crates quickly and cheaply. I've just finished planking a sheet of 20 thou styrene. What I did was print out some spacer bars using a CAD program. I'm using 1/8 inch spacing, which equates to about 11 inches in HO scale, and 11 1/4 or 11 1/8 would be the actual size of a 2x12, so it's a good size. It also matches the widest spacing available on evergreen scribed styrene sheet, just in case I want to match it up. I could have bought the scribed styrene, but I'm cheap and I decided to make my own. I used the end of a worn out razor saw blade. You end up with a little bit of curling in the styrene, but it's not serious. You can easily straighten it out, and it's going to go onto a backing sheet anyway. Now I want to add some wood grain. I don't want to go overboard here because packing crates are generally made out of fairly new wood. It's not like it's been weathered for years. So I'm just going to use the side of a hacksaw blade just lightly. I'm not going deep. I just want to give it a little bit of texture. And I'm going to use some coarse sandpaper. That will get rid of any burrs. And that's plenty of texture for the wood planking that I need. Well, I've marked out and cut 5 pairs of ends here, all for different size crates. What I'm going to do next is glue them to a sheet of 40 thou styrene. That will give them some thickness and prevent the curling. Okay, what I'm going to do is line them up along the edge so that they're nice and square, and then I will ultimately use the edge of the scribed piece as a guide for cutting them out. Next thing to do is to select some strips styrene to make the framing. Well, I have a good supply of scale 2x8, but I only had one strip of 2x6 left. So what I'm going to do is use the 2x6 for the smaller crates and the 2x8 for the larger ones. When it comes to making the smaller crates, it can be difficult to square up such small assemblies. So I'm going to start off with cores cut from styrene tube and bar stock. And I'm going to use scribed evergreen sheet. This sheet here is 20 thou thick and it's scribed at a 60 thou spacing, which approximately equates to a 2x6 in HO scale. Well, over the last couple of days I have made a much larger variety of crates. I've got 25 different small crates here, as well as 5 pairs of ends for larger crates. Although they're all intended for use on an HO scale layout, all of them can be used in multiple scales. Most are suitable for N, some aren't, like that one's probably not. But everything, even the smallest crate, can be used on O or G scale. So they really are universal. Because what represents a medium crate on an HO scale layout is going to represent a small crate on an O scale layout and a large crate on an N scale layout, as long as the planking width is appropriate. Well, rather than put everything in the same mould, I've got all the ends for the large crates in one. I've split the full crates, the larger ones and the smaller ones, and then I've arranged them in a rectangle to give the most efficient usage of the rubber for my moulds. Well, I have glued all my crates into mould boxes, so now I am past the point of no return. Before I did that, I could have just painted them up and had 30 different crates to use on my layout. But that would have meant about 3 or 4 days effort for just 30 crates. I want to be able to produce several hundred crates with only slightly more effort than that. Hence the need for making the molds. Okay, as I said before, this is 1:1 rapid, which gives me about 20 minutes of working time and cures in about 4 hours. The Express only gives about 6 minutes of working time, and I wasn't sure if that would be enough. Right, I have put in 100 milliliters of that. So that is, as near as makes no difference, equal quantities. Now I have to make sure that it's properly mixed, and that takes a couple of minutes. And it's important not to whip too much air into it as well. In theory, I can take the mould box apart in 4 hours, but I like to leave them overnight. I'm just going to move that off the work area and get on with the next one. Well, the moulds have been curing for a whole day, a lot longer than necessary, but I had stuff to do. It's time to get them out of the mould boxes, which basically is just a case of ripping the sides off. I'm not trying to salvage them, save them for reuse, because usually I can't. Occasionally I'll get off one that I can reuse. But at this point I'm more interested in separating the mould from the masters without tearing anything. And being fairly deep mastered on this one, I've got to go quite slowly and carefully. Once air sneaks in over the top of the masters, it becomes a lot easier. And there we are, one perfect mould. When it comes to making multiple castings out of resin, you're going to go through a lot of measuring cups. If you don't want to spend a lot of money buying them, here's an easy way to make your own. Clear plastic drinking cups. I've taken an 1/8 cup measure. You can use any size you want as long as it's consistent. Filled it up with water, tipped it in, made a line. Fill it up again, tip it in, make another line. So that I don't use up this measuring cup
on the very first casting, put another one inside. Of course, your first measurement is going to be way out, so make yourself another measuring cup with an allowance for that. The one that you first drew, put it inside the cup, and then trace the markings onto the new cup. This is what I've done here. Here's the raw measurements. Here's another one that I've traced the lines. When I now put a clean drinking cup inside this one, that's the lines I have to fill to, or multiples of them.
Well, yesterday I converted a bottle of resin into a bucket of castings. Okay, I haven't counted them, but I know there's over 100 here, various sizes. Most of them have a little layer of flash around the bottom. That comes off. Just peel that off with your thumb. Some of the thicker ones will need a craft knife. And then I just clean it up on a piece of sandpaper. And that's now ready for paint. I am sure you don't want to watch me clean up over 100 crates, so I'm just going to quietly get on with this, and I will check in with you again later. After casting all these crates and cleaning them up, now it's time to paint them. What I've done is attach them to scraps of plywood or cardboard using upside down masking tape. The important first step with the painting is to use a white primer. Now, I know what you're thinking, the crates are already white and any other colour would be easier, and you'll be right. But just bear with me and I will show you why it's important that we prime them with white paint. It's all very well casting crates out of resin, but unless we can get it to look like wood, then it's all for nothing. Anyway, the secret I found is all in this can of paint here. It's a sample from a home improvement store. What I did is selected a piece of basswood from my supply, deliberately choosing one that was a little darker than average, and then I took that to the store and had them mix it up. And this can of paint here cost me $3, and it's probably going to be enough to make about 1 million crates. So what I do now is dump a little bit of water on my tray and a couple of brushfuls of this paint, and just roughly mix it. So what I'm aiming for is a runny paint, a little bit more than a wash, something that nearly covers the primer. I want some of the white to show through. That gives it a random, almost grain-like effect. When it dries, it looks a lot more like wood than any solid colour that I've been able to come up with. So now you know why it's important to prime it with white. Well, I've spent about a week, or the best part of the last week, making crates, and this is what I have so far. There are almost 600 crates here in a wide variety of different configurations. I don't think it's quite enough yet, but it's certainly a great start. Now for the special offer I promised you at the start. For those of you who would like crates like these for your layouts but don't want to spend the time making the masters, I'm going to be selling them on eBay. By the time this video appears, they should already be listed, both in painted and unpainted versions, depending on whether you'd like to save time or save money. That's good for those of you who just want a few crates, but what if you want a lot like I do? Well, I'm also going to be selling the molds. That way you could have as many crates as you want for a modest cost. I've put my eBay username in the description rather than embedding it in the video, just in case I need to change it for any reason. And one more thing, if you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel and you order either crates or molds, send me a message and tell me your YouTube username, and I will include something extra in the package. And if you subscribe to my channel just for the freebie, that's okay. Thanks for watching.